Hey guys, welcome back to my kitchen. It's Laura from Uproots Wellness, getting ready for my 40-day spiritual retreat postpartum and making all of the most delicious, comfort, nutritious foods that taste phenomenal and are amazing for your health. So today is no exception. Today I am making one of my absolute favorite recipes as well as one of my absolute fan favorites. So everybody that I feed this to is just like absolutely amazed by how good this tastes. So today we're going to be making a meaty, either vegetarian or beef lasagna in a very classic way with bechamel sauce, but done in a very new, highly nutritious, much lower carb and calorie, and maybe even tastier than the original. So there's two main kind of recipes that we're making today, which are mother sauces. So we're going to make a tomato sauce that is like highly nutritious and absolutely delicious, but we're also going to be making a bechamel sauce. Now, if you're not familiar with bechamel, you may have had it in like a classic kind of lasagna from like a grocery store, or maybe from a restaurant that does it in a classic way. The bechamel is like a white sort of creamy sauce that you'll also find on moussaka. It's like a big kind of pillowy layer on moussaka that's essentially made with butter and flour and a bit of milk. It's pretty much what a lot of, if not all, kind of cream sauces or cream soups are based on, and it's very butter heavy and it's full of white flour. It tastes amazing. It tastes like heaven, and it really makes your cheese stretch. It really makes a creamy, cheesy kind of texture in any kind of food or casserole that you're using it in, but with using a lot less cheese. So that in itself could cut you a lot of fat and calories that you don't necessarily need while adding a ton of flavor if you could make it healthy, which is what we're going to do today. So we're actually going to make a bechamel with cauliflower. And I know it sounds crazy, but cauliflower is so versatile and it can get so creamy. And we are actually going to sub out some of the main parts of bechamel to make it taste maybe even better than the original. But like I said, full of nutrients, way lower calorie, way lower fat, and way better for you. So the bechamel is what we're going to start on first, and we're going to start by cutting our cauliflower. And one thing I actually wanted to show you guys is how to cut cauliflower. You know how, sometimes when you cut through cauliflower, if I grab this knife and just like cut right through it, you get all these like little pieces, like powdery pieces. And while it doesn't really matter that much for this recipe, whether we have little powdery pieces or not, because we're going to puree it into a sauce, it really does matter when you're doing other things. So what you actually do is you go through the stalk and then you pull the cauliflower apart. See? There's absolutely no powder. Well, not absolutely, but you see what I mean? You get a whole piece. So that's how you want to cut cauliflower. Then we're going to transfer all this cauliflower into a pot. One small or medium potato. So if you want any of the ingredients, the exact ingredients, they're all linked in my blog below. You can go and click through to that after you watch this and get all of the measurements and the ingredients. But as I was saying, we're gonna replace everything in the bechamel. So the bechamel is extremely carb heavy, with it being mostly flour and butter. So what we're going to do is we're gonna replace a bit of the carb with a bit of potato. And I'm going to be using a Vitamix to do this, so I'm leaving the peel on. If you're using a food processor, I would probably peel it so that it breaks down completely and you really get a nice kind of smooth texture from the potato. So I'm just gonna fill this with water. And then I'm gonna add a bit of salt. It's optional, but I like to flavor in layers, season in layers. And just cover that up and get that cooking. We're gonna come back to that bechamel in a little while, but in the meantime, we are going to start making our other mother sauce, which means it's a very important sauce that all other sauces are made out of, and that's a tomato. So basically I am using a bunch of vegetables that were just in my fridge, kind of forgotten from, you know, intended recipes to make this sauce, which makes it not just really a great way to use up, you know, ingredients that I haven't used in my fridge, but it also makes for very nutritious sauce. So this is the exact same way you cut cauliflower, you cut broccoli. It's a little bit easier with broccoli than with cauliflower, but same idea. Cut through the stalk, and that's the only thing your knife should be touching is the stalk. Then you pull it apart. So a classic tomato sauce, if you wanted to make this classic, you're going to the store, getting the ingredients to make this dish. I would add carrot for sweetness, which is normally what people are missing from store-bought tomato sauces. Almost all store-bought tomato sauces have added sugar and usually added oil as well. But the added sugar gives it a sweetness that you can mimic with just some carrot, celery, and onion. So those are the main kind of vegetables that I would be putting into this sauce if I was just making a classic sauce and going and grabbing the ingredients. But because I had a bunch of broccoli in my fridge and I had these peppers that are kind of like wrinkly and, you know, they miss their time to shine in like a salad, but they're definitely still good for a sauce, I'm just gonna make it with what I've got, and you'll be surprised how absolutely delicious all of these vegetables make it. Now you could, if you wanted to, you could saute up these vegetables and then blend it all together if you wanted. I do it this way because this is definitely a lot easier. If you cook them, if you sauteed them down with a bit of oil, you could release a little bit more sugars and you get a little bit more flavor out of the veg. I personally don't feel that it is necessary with all of the extra flavor that you get from adding all of this veg into this sauce, but you could definitely do that if you are, you know, a stickler for the classic way of doing things, or if that little extra hint of flavor was really important to you. You could add the stalks in, you can add whatever in. Just because this one's a little bit old, it's been sitting in the fridge for a while, I'm just gonna maybe put it into my stock bag in the freezer or just throw it away. So because this is getting a bit full, I'm going to go ahead and blend this up and then do the onions separately. So I'm using heirloom diced tomatoes in a can because I think that the flavor is really good and worth the just a little bit extra money for them, and you can even grab them on sale whenever they go on sale and stock up. I think it's worth it. They do actually have quite a bit more flavor, and I typically find that, you know, if I can't get the heirlooms, I'll go with an organic as well. I've got some other cans that are organic that I'll add into this because I do find that they as well have just quite a bit more flavor than, you know, your standard tin tomatoes. Nervous about this. And again, I'm just gonna season this just lightly with some sea salt to get that layered kind of seasoning into the dish, and some chili flakes. I like to use chili flakes instead of pepper in a lot of things. We're gonna blend this up now, hopefully. I think we're actually gonna have to add more tomato, which is totally fine. Got some organic tomato in the fridge. So this is our first batch of the tomato sauce. I'm gonna now cut up some onion and garlic for the second part of the tomato sauce. And we're going to add all of that into a pot and bring it up to a simmer. Now, the amount of sauce I'm making right now is going to be a lot more than just for one lasagna. I'm making enough sauce so that we actually have a tomato sauce for pasta as well to freeze. So if you go on the blog, I have used the measurements to make the sauce just for lasagna. So if you're thinking that this is maybe a lot of tomato sauce for this recipe, you're right. It's probably about a double recipe right now. Okay, so I've got my onion and garlic all prepped up and ready to go in the whizzer. I'm actually waiting on our cauliflower pot to cook this sauce in. So while we're waiting, I'm going to get started on the protein. The last time I made this recipe, I made it vegetarian and I fed it to my husband and my father, and they were both over the moon about the flavor of it, how good it tasted. And neither one of them had any idea that it was vegetarian or extremely good for you. So this time I'm going to be making it kind of half and half. So I'm going to use half ground beef and half vegetarian protein in it. This kind of not just stretches your animal protein, which is very important, especially if you're using, high quality animal proteins like organic or, local, etc. They can get quite expensive. So being able to kind of spread it out with another high quality protein is really beneficial, but also for our health, diversifying the different ways that we get nutrients. So diversifying where we're getting our protein. So there's going to be more than one main protein source in this lasagna, just makes it that much more varied. I've talked about in other videos, there aren't very many golden rules to nutrition, but one of them is definitely to eat varied, to diversify where you're getting your nutrients. So we're gonna start by mincing up some onion and adding our ground beef to that. Once we get our ground beef sauteing up and browning, seasoned with a bit of salt and chili flakes again, we're going to add what is called textured vegetable protein. I'm gonna hit it with a bit of soy sauce, make sure that it is very well seasoned with sea salt to really bring out the flavors, and let that all soak in together, let it soak up the beef flavors and mesh together, and people will never even know that there is any vegetarian protein in it whatsoever, because it's a high quality protein and it is very inexpensive and easy to get your hands on, and it has an incredible texture. So you can use this textured vegetable protein, or what they call veggie ground round that you get in the grocery store, which is exactly the same thing, it's just prepared for you in the grocery store. So if you are using textured vegetable protein, which I highly recommend because it's way cheaper than buying like the packaged stuff, and you can flavor it to make it taste way better than the packaged stuff too. If you're using solely vegetarian protein in this, if you're making a vegan or vegetarian lasagna, I would flavor the TVP with some vegetarian beef stock or vegetarian mushroom stock and some soy sauce or liquid aminos. Okay, so these are done, and you do want to make sure that these are pretty well cooked, especially if you don't have a Vitamix. The Vitamix will just annihilate anything, but if you're using a food processor, you want to make sure these are really well cooked. And now I'm just going to transfer my tomato sauce in the making to this pot. And we'll get the other part of this going with a bunch of onion and a bunch of cloves of garlic. Just going to make sure we get all that delicious good stuff out of here. Again, we're going to season with a really nice sea salt. Just lightly, you can do more later as it's cooking to taste. And I'm gonna go chili flakes because that is my preference. You can go black pepper or cayenne or whatever spice you prefer. So again, just blend it up. Now again, if you wanted that classic tomato sauce taste, you could add a little bit of tomato paste to darken the flavor, but it will get darker in color and deeper in flavor as all of these vegetables cook together and marry. sauce is quite thick because of the all of the broccoli and the fiber that I've gotten that, so I'm gonna add a little bit of water. You could alternatively add a bit of stock, which I might do depending on how deep the flavor gets, but this actually helps me clean out my blender as well. Okay, so I've cleaned up my tools and we're gonna move on to making the pièce de résistance in this recipe, which is the bechamel made of cauliflower. So I actually put 2 small potatoes in there because I'm pregnant right now, and I tend to, when I have a craving for something, I really need the macro constituents of it. So what I mean by that is that if I'm craving something that's carby, I need there to be actually carbs in it. You can't just hand me some cauliflower rice when I want rice and have that satisfy me. I need to actually have, you know, the macro constituents of whatever the food is that I'm craving. Which I think actually, like in any instance, is a really good idea to keep your body aware of what it is going to be getting nutritionally. So if your body traditionally gets carbohydrates when it gets pasta, then a craving for pasta could actually mean that you need carbohydrates. So kind of tricking your body by giving like a konjac noodle or something that doesn't have any nutritional value, let alone any carbohydrates, can kind of maybe cause a little bit of a rift between you and your appetite, you and your natural appetite. And at Uproots Wellness, we always try to get people in touch with what I call their ideal body nature, and that will dictate the ideal nutrition that they need to get into their ideal body composition. So putting at least a bit of carbs into something that would normally be carbohydrate laden is a really great way to facilitate continuing a really good, healthy, straightforward, and transparent relationship with your appetite. So the next constituent of a traditional bechamel is a ton of butter. So you don't need to use butter, you can use any fat that you want. I'm going to be quite generous with my butter here, I think. Maybe I'll start with, yeah, you can use about anywhere from 1/4 cup to about 1/2 cup. Maybe I'll start with that. No, I'll be a little bit more generous. You can cut this back, use coconut oil, olive oil. You can use a butter substitute if you want to make this vegan. Whatever you choose, just as long as you're adding a bit of fat, that will go a long way to satiating the craving for that creaminess, but also just satiating just the flavor of the whole dishes. You don't need to use as much fat as I have. This is just what I'm doing today because this is what I'm feeling. And then the last 2 ingredients are nutmeg. They're totally optional, but nutmeg, this is pretty hard to get fresh, but if you ever do find it, this is what a fresh nutmeg looks like. And this is actually, if you listen to this, it's like a little nut. Hear that? So what's inside of there is this actual nutmeg, and this makes a giant difference in taste, whether you can get this fresh or not. But if you can only find it in a packet, adding nutmeg to this dish will also go a long way to making it taste authentic and giving it those little nuanced flavors that would traditionally be in a bechamel. So this might actually be better to do in a food processor, but we're gonna go with it in the Vitamix today. You can add your milk, make it a bit creamier. Like I said, you really want a creamy consistency on this. The last ingredients, I just forgot to season, but I did reserve this Parmesan cheese on purpose. This also traditionally goes in a nice bechamel, some parm and nutmeg. That will go a long way again to get you that bechamel-y flavor. And I'm just gonna salt it generously with some nice sea salt as well. And give it one last whirl. Now, I'm just going to taste test this now just to see if there's any last minute little additions it needs. You can see this consistency, look at it, look at how creamy that is. Baby, I think I need a taste tester. Come here.
That is the creamiest, most delicious thing I've ever tasted in my whole life.
Yeah.
What is that? There's no flour in it, no nothing like that. It's just
No.
Is this cauliflower?
Yeah, cauliflower with butter and a bit of cheese. But honestly, the amount of butter and cheese that I put in here really isn't that generous for like a cream sauce at all. This is mostly cauliflower. I know, it's crazy. You gotta taste this stuff to believe it. Now it is finally time to preheat the oven to 350 and start building these lasagna. Okay, so my tomato sauce has been simmering for probably about an hour. These kinds of sauces would typically be simmered for quite some time, and you'll notice I was just tasting it about 10 or 15 minutes ago, and it had this very acidic, very fresh flavor that I really wanted to deepen and darken. So I got some beef stock for my purpose here. This is often a problem that we run into when we're making vegetarian, vegan, plant-based food. So it's quite simple to fix either way, whether you're making vegetarian food or making meat food. But in my case, I'm gonna use some real beef stock in here to darken that up. If I was making a vegetarian or vegan version of this dish, I would probably suggest something like miso. You can use like a soy sauce or liquid aminos if that's what you've got around, but I'd highly recommend like a fermented deep depth of flavor, and that'll really deepen it. Now 10 or 15 minutes later, it's actually deepened and darkened in flavor on its own, just from the longer cooking process. But I have this bit of beef stock here, so I'm just gonna mix it in anyhow. And yeah, if you're doing a vegetarian option, miso is your friend. Because we added so many vegetables to it earlier, we added so much broccoli, it kind of had like a green, very light color, and now it is a dark, deeper red color, and the flavor is to suit. All right, so it's time to build our lasagnas. I have gotten probably my last choice in noodles, just because when we went to the store, they had what they had, but I will tell you what my first choices would have been. My first choice would have probably been a red lentil noodle, because you get lots of fiber in a red lentil noodle. It's completely wheat free. You also get added protein, with also it being quite carb forward. There's about half kind of 50-50 carb to protein in a lentil or a legume pasta, which just following that line of reasoning to like keep your relationship with your body and with your appetite kind of clear and transparent. When, you know, if you're craving something like a pasta and then you give yourself, you know, those macros that are included in the pasta, but make it a little bit better, you know, make it higher fiber, make it protein rich, and make it from a different source than you normally would get, then that's like a really good way to give yourself like optimal nutrition while satisfying, you know, a craving and making yourself feel really great. So red lentil would have been my first choice. My second choice is normally brown rice. Because although it doesn't have a ton of protein in it, it does have fiber and a ton of nutrients. I normally wouldn't go with a wheat pasta, not because I have anything against wheat or gluten, but because in a Western diet, we tend to already eat quite a lot of wheat anyways. I know, like myself and my husband, we are on a sourdough kick right now. We love to have English muffins in the morning. Sourdough breads, and you know, anytime that we go out and we get like a pastry or whatever, it's always wheat flour. So I like to have like a brown rice flour or lentil flour, etc. in my pasta, just to again get those varied nutrients, the nutrients from varied sources. So this one we went with, it's not even a whole wheat pasta. That probably would have been my third choice, would be like a whole grain pasta. But this one has added fiber. It's a white wheat pasta with added fiber. And when I looked at the nutritional facts, this one actually had more fiber than the whole wheat, the only other whole wheat lasagna noodle they had. And the lasagna noodle that they had that was whole wheat, you had to boil first, which is not what I am up for. So I got my last choice, lasagna noodle. So hopefully you can get something a little bit better wherever you are. But this is definitely gonna do, and it's better than just a traditional white noodle because it does have all of that added fiber, which will help with satiety, meaning like feeling satiated, feeling satisfied, but it also will help with slowing down carb absorption, as will a bit of fat. So, lining the dish with our lovely vegetable-rich tomato sauce. You guys know how to build lasagna, right? Sure you do. And I've just got my beef and TVP half vegetarian protein mix there. And I've also got a bit of spinach for this recipe specifically because I think spinach and cream sauce is just so delicious. I just feel like the spinach will really go well with our bechamel. However, the kind of beauty of this recipe is that you don't even need to add any obvious vegetables. So this is really great for you know, people who don't love vegetables, like, you know, kids sometimes have a little bit of a I don't know, an attitude about vegetables. I remember once I made this kind of pasta sauce for my little nephew when he was really young, and he said to me, "Oh, Auntie, my taste buds are dancing," because he loved the flavor, so much of it. And he had no idea that all that flavor came from vegetables. So kids love this stuff. So you don't have to add any veg whatsoever. You can have a very traditional kind of lasagna that is sort of noodles, meat, cheese, and sauce, while having all of the benefits of it being over half veg. You know, in my first trimester, I got a palate like a little kid. I couldn't stand cooked vegetables. I was okay with like salads and raw veg snacks, like, you know, sticks and tomato on my toast and whatnot, but cooked veg was just like, couldn't stand it. So recipes like this can be a real lifesaver for, you know, those who maybe are at your dinner table that don't love to eat their vegetables, because they definitely will love to eat this. so this last layer is really the special one in our recipe because is when we're gonna get the bechamel. And this is like I said, it's such a great way to stretch your cheese or to, you know, lessen those like calories that you're getting from cheese. Because if you've ever looked at cheese, if you get like a traditional kind of cheese, like it's super, super calorie dense and it's, you know, freaking delicious. Like who wants to not eat their cheese? Not you, if you're watching this lasagna, like cheese is the biggest, you know, part of it, that chewy, ooey gooiness of it. So what the bechamel does is give you this like ooey gooey, soft, you know, creamy, cheesy texture, but with a lot less cheese. So we're gonna pour this on. We're gonna try and get it on like pretty even because you don't really want to disturb it too much once it's on. I'm just gonna spread this out really gently. Again, I don't really want to disturb the lower layers. Kind of splattering on the top. We're not gonna waste any of this. Every last bit. So last step is the cheese. Again, I would normally go for a low-fat mozzarella and then a bit of Parmesan that we used in the bechamel on top. Again, if you're doing this vegan or vegetarian, some vegan or vegetarian cheese would be fine. A little bit of maybe like nutritional yeast or something like that. Even some chopped up nuts on top of this bechamel would be great. I have this Italian mix because honestly it was on sale. I normally don't love shredded cheese either, but since I've been pregnant, some of those things, they aren't as important as they used to be to me. So you don't need as much cheese as you would normally use on a lasagna. And if you are using a low fat, like a skim milk mozzarella, which is my preference because it has a lot more protein, you get a lot more nutrients for the amount of calories that you're taking in. This is actually a really great way to use a cheese like that because the bechamel is so creamy. It kind of makes up for some of the loss of creaminess when you're lowering the fat in the cheese. But this is like a mix of mozzarella, Gouda, provolone, and Parm. So as you can see, I've used one of these, like it's 320 grams. There's not a lot of cheese for 2 lasagnas whatsoever. But when this comes out, I am going to add a little bit more Parm, some nice Parm on top. This is a great way that you get a little bit of that really nice brown crispiness on the top of your lasagna as you top it with a bit of Parm. But yeah, so when we pull this out, you're gonna see how creamy and cheesy and ooey and gooey this actually is with using, you know, quite a little amount of cheese. So we're gonna cover these up and we're gonna bake them covered for 30 minutes and then uncovered for I think 20, but check the blog for the exact recipe. Uncovered these guys about 20 minutes ago and the little guy is ready, and you can see I've got my tomato sauce that was left over, so it wasn't quite a double batch, but we've got this to stick in the freezer and we're gonna let this cool just a little bit before cutting into it, and then we'll show you all that creamy goodness and what's inside. Alright, so we're all out of the oven. The big one is cooling, the little one's been cooling a little while. I'm just gonna cut into this. I'm super scared it's gonna be really messy. And if that's the case, it will definitely be a lot cleaner when it's chilled in the fridge for preserving, for freezing. But for the time being, we're starving. And we really want. Look at how gooey that is. See that gooey bechamel? So yum. We really want a piece of this. So first piece is always the hardest. Look at that. And if you think that these look like pretty big portions, remember, these 2 lasagnas contain an entire head of cauliflower, a head and a half of broccoli, 2 peppers, a bunch of onions. It's only half ground beef and a little packet of cheese. So this is like half vegetables and way more than half plants. This is a very healthy way to eat lasagna. And although I'm sure you could find lots of healthy ways to eat lasagna, I'm going to say that this lasagna sticks out from any kind of other healthy lasagna for one major reason, and that is because my mouth is watering. I haven't even tasted this. This tastes so damn good. I think it's time to get my taste tester up here so that you can see his reaction. But actually, baby, what did you say when I got you to taste the tomato sauce?
That was the best tomato sauce I've ever had.
Yeah, which is probably not totally accurate because I think I've made better tomato sauces in the past. But the flavors that are infused from all those veggies and all the steps that we've taken that are really, really simple make it like epic. So let's try everything together. Okay, so look at this creaminess. Look at how creamy that is.
Okay. Oh my god, it's like a big strain.
Mm. Mm.
That is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It tastes incredible.
Mm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My goodness.
Yeah, it's like the creamiest, cheesiest, meatiest lasagna ever, and so much more. Everything else that you want.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to eat this now.
Yeah, let's go eat. So we're gonna go eat, and I will see you guys later. This is actually, I am back from postpartum. I am back from my maternity leave right after this video, so I can't wait to see you guys and start accompanying you on your best body journey in the easiest, most enjoyable way imaginable. See you next time, guys.